This is Dr. David D. Schein, author, attorney, professor, generally a pretty useful person, at least a lot of people seem to think so. And welcome to Saving America. This is a weekly special that I do. Sometimes we have guests. We won't have guests today, but we'll probably have guests next week in our Just the Facts segment. So we divide our presentations into three segments. And we're going to start with In the News, which is the crisis at our southern border created by the Biden administration. And then we're going to talk about the rumor of the week, which is increase in teen suicides related to the teachers' union's refusal to go back in the classroom, even though the risk is very low. And then on Just the Facts, we're going to talk about having riots in other parts of the country, destroying personal property and federal property, injuring police and federal authorities, and not arresting anybody compared to what happened at the Capitol. Now, as I've said before, we're never defending what happened at the Capitol. Violence is a bad thing. But in saying violence is a bad thing, it means all violence, not just violence that's wrongly attributed to Trump supporters, but violence attributed to anyone who jeopardizes the safety and freedom of Americans.
You say A, and that's your final answer?
So let's get started with In the News. And I'm going to look at my notes because I want to make sure that we give you the facts the way they are as of today in the middle of March and on the eve of St. Patrick's Day. So the southwest border crossing is reached a level that has not been seen in 20 years, and that is actually said by the Biden administration. Now, some clowns in the Biden administration have tried to somehow blame the Trump administration, which pretty much had the situation under control. So I don't think there are people out there stupid enough to believe that this wasn't created by poor administrative decisions by Biden and his lackeys. So let's be clear about that. The worst problem in 20 years and a problem that was under control up until January 20th, 2021, when Biden took over. So among the many problems this brings is fentanyl. Fentanyl is the drug that seems to be causing so many deaths in the United States. The basic chemicals are made in China. The drug itself is made in Mexico. And then it is smuggled in through the porous border that Biden has created and will contribute to the opioid and drug crisis in the United States, a very, very serious problem by itself, and one that was sort of under control, not completely under the Trump administration. But I think if they had completed the wall and continued their efforts to crush the southern border's illegal crossings, they might have made even more progress. U.S. Customs and Border Patrol arrested 22 criminals out of the people that they stopped last week. Now, remember, the borders are now open because the Border Patrol has run out of people. They cannot patrol all of the border crossings, and they have announced this, which I think is going to lead to even more illegal border crossings. So these 22 criminals they have arrested is, as we say, tip of the iceberg. They've got a Biden senior administrator, Cedric Richmond. When asked if there were too many children coming in, he said, well, the real question is, why are they coming here? That's not really an answer to the question, which means that they're going to keep having porous borders, I guess, until the general population rises up and Biden administration realizes that they have made a grievous, grievous error. And hopefully that will happen sooner than later, as we say. I'm trying to figure out why it was okay for the Biden administration to order that airlines must check COVID for not just international passengers from other countries, but Americans coming into the United States from other countries must pass a COVID test. So let's go over this. There is uncontrolled COVID problems in South and Central America and Mexico. And we have opened our borders and there is no COVID testing at all being done there. How does this help keep America safe? Obviously, a rhetorical question. It does not. Biden administration is enemy number one for the American people and their safety. This is an absolutely unforgivable situation, and hopefully one that the American public and the lackeys in the media will start moving forward and make sure that things get fixed and fixed now.
Well, the weakest link. Goodbye.
So let's look at the rumor of the week, and it's no secret, it's been in the news quite a bit, is that the teachers unions, despite being cajoled and money being thrown at them in cities like Chicago, have been refusing to go back to school. And then you've got the clowns in California who think that, indefinite shutdowns are a good idea, even though their COVID problem is as bad as it is in other states like Texas, which have opened things up. And I also note that across much of the country, the parochial schools have operated continuously and have not led to a surge of problems for either the students or the teachers. The very, very sad thing we know is that students need the contact with other students. They need the contact with teachers, and especially in the younger students. And the teen suicide rate is skyrocketing in the United States, and it is another health-related problem that must be dealt with and dealt with soon. The best remedy we have is to provide as much psychiatric care as we possibly can and get the schools open and try and get things back to normal. I call on the teachers, get back in the classroom, do your job, and let's see if we can solve at least one crisis that's happening around America. And certainly with the money that the Biden administration is throwing at school systems, there's money to provide competent counselors or to hire psychologists and psychiatrists to try and help out a little bit as we reopen the schools. And I think extracurricular activities, a lot of things which have been restricted over the last few years, getting those activities going again, high school football, high school basketball. They may seem trivial, but they're not trivial to the students. They give them something to focus on, and hopefully we're going to get things going.
Just the facts, ma'am.
And then we move on to just the facts. And, I want to know, as a taxpayer, as a citizen, as someone who has never been arrested, and I don't plan to start now, is why is it okay for the FBI to arrest up to 300 people for the riot, the unforgivable riot at the Capitol, but to not arrest these violent protesters in Los Angeles, Seattle, and Portland? This is where it happened Saturday night, March 13th. And so far, I'm seeing in Portland, out of hundreds of protesters, they've only arrested and charged 13. Now, the police did something, there's a new term which I became familiar with. I did some research before I began recording tonight to talk about a approach called kettling. Kettling is, in cattle terms, is called a roundup. You go out there and you put a rope around an area and you say, if you're a legitimate member of the press or an individual from the public who did not intend to be involved in this riot, come on out, check in, get out of here. And the rest of you, we're going to search you. Well, of course, when these rioters saw that they were going to be searched, guess what they found on the ground? Crowbar, hammers, Bear spray. I'm not quite sure what bear spray is, but I guess if you go camping and you're afraid a bear might come at you, it's like safety spray on steroids or something like that. But bear spray, knives, and what the department described as a slugging weapon with rocks. The police have also had full cans of beer thrown at them. There have been Molotov cocktails. They've been breaking buildings. There's a Starbucks with broken windows. The federal building was again visited in Portland, and they broke more windows and they did more damage. Hey guys, that is a federal building like the Capitol. And I want, at a minimum, anyone damaging a federal building arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And I don't care how many police it takes. I don't care how many FBI agents. That is your responsibility. And I want it done, and I want it done now. And I think these protests could be shut down in 2 days if you round up, arrest these people, and you impose costs on them as they have to hire uh, uh, attorneys, and they have to post bond, or they have to stay in jail like they did with a lot of the folks at the Capitol. That makes sense to me as a taxpayer, a citizen, and a voter. And it's time for the FBI and the federal authorities to do their job and to shut this down. If Portland police and the Portland mayor won't allow their city to be destroyed, that sadly is up to their citizens to shut that down. But when it comes to that federal building and other federal buildings, that belongs to me, and it belongs to those of you who are listening to this webcast. And it's time for the feds to get in gear and do the right thing for the American people. This has been Saving America. It's Dr. David D. Schein, author of Decline of America, 100 Years of Leadership Failures. And we're sure seeing a lot more leadership failures at the moment. And author, attorney, and professor, and happy that you joined me for this webcast.